New York Giants fans, there's been a lot of talk coming off of the combine about the New York Giants possibly looking to get up to the number one spot and trading with the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to be joined today by Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation reporter. He's the best in the business. We're going to chop it up because I'm Coach Gene Clemons and I've got a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I'm Coach Gene Clemons. New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure that you go over there and check that out. I just dropped the last of my combine risers off of the offensive line that went to work yesterday on the field. Go back and check out all of those. You're going to see names that you have not heard in this cycle. Why? Because I think you should know more than just the top 25 people in this draft, especially since there's 7 rounds and undrafted free agents that are going to end up on the team. So make sure you go check that out. Make sure that you're checking out all of the writing that I'm doing over at the New York Giants on that side. I'm back in the bag because it's the off season. It's around the draft, and y'all know how I give it up when it comes around that time. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was this reporting going on that says that the Giants and maybe even the Jets are trying to position to move up to the number 1 pick in order to secure the services of a quarterback. Many people are speculating that it's Cam Ward. I don't really know. I don't even pretend to know who they might want to pick. All I know is if I want to know anything about what the Titans are doing, I'm going to call in the person who has his finger on the pulse of the Titans, and he's had a finger on the pulse of the Titans for the last few years. That's my guy. I'm happy and blessed to call him a friend. Turron Davenport, ESPN Nation. TD, I appreciate you joining me, man.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me on, man. There's a lot to talk about, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Let's just start here. Let's just start with Combine Week. We both were there. It's rare that we have an opportunity to spend time in the same place at the same time. And so it was good to see you out there. It was good to see our guy Emery Hunt, our guy CJ, Chris James out there, and all of the other places. How was it this year? We got good weather at the beginning of the week, and then it got like dangerously cold at the end of the week.
Yeah.
How was everything for you out there?
Yeah, that last night, Saturday, man, it was biting out
Brick.
there, that's for sure. But no, the
Absolutely.
week was good. Like you said, the weather was good. It didn't have the same buzz as I've noticed in the past. Prime 47 didn't have the same presence, but still plenty of opportunities to network and talk to scouts, personnel people, coaches, etc. And there was a lot of valuable information that was gained.
Yeah, and everybody was there. I mean, Joe Shane was there, and he was out and moving and shaking, and you saw personnel people from all the teams out there. But you're right. Do you think that the lack of buzz, or at least the diminishing of buzz, was the fact that a lot of the top picks or the presumed top picks in this draft didn't perform?
No, I don't know if that's what it was. I've seen, well, honestly, none of the top 4 picks, now as you think about it, performed.
That's what
Mason
I'm
Graham
saying.
was probably the highest rated player to show up and do something, which is crazy to think. But I mean, there was still plenty to gather, but I don't know what it was. It just, that buzz wasn't there.
Yeah, maybe it's just that there wasn't an abundance of glamour at the top. I mean, obviously outside of the 2 quarterbacks we're going to speak about, and that's been spoken about a lot. I don't know exactly how much of these guys were. There wasn't a lot of glamorous,
Mm-hmm.
picks. It was almost more just like, hey, a bunch of guys that get the job done. Um, Not really guys that are just like wow players. Even with a guy like Ashton Genty, who a lot of people have referred to as generational. I don't necessarily put him in that same category, but he's still more of a kind of humble, low key, ho hum type of dude when you're talking to him. So maybe it was that. I did notice one thing that I saw more during this combine than I've seen at any other combine, just when guys were at the podium speaking. The Shedeur Sanders effect of being comfortable with flashing your jewelry. And I mean, even Cam Scatterbull was out there with he
Yeah.
had a little chain on and everything. Like, I feel like guys felt a lot more empowered watching how those Colorado players moved when they were out there.
Yeah, they weren't scared to let you know that they got it, and that's the benefit of NIL. These guys are able to make money and they can flaunt it if they want to, and that's what a lot of them did for sure. Shedeur, the day of the on-field dress the diamonds were dancing that he had on the day of
They
the
were.
on-field workouts. Man, those things were, yeah, he was
You could
fun.
see him like from where we were in the, in the stands watching. It was like you couldn't
Yeah,
miss him anywhere he was.
yep, that's for
Now,
sure.
now talking about the quarterbacks, both guys got on the podium. Both guys had an opportunity to speak. What did you take away from what you heard from both guys when you had a chance to go back and kind of listen to everything? Because it was, first of all, it was crazy. Um,
Mhm.
they had Shedeur and Cam Ward at the exact same time. It was a podium in between both of their
Yeah,
podiums. So they
yeah,
weren't right next to each other, but because they were up there, they didn't put anybody in the podium between those two. And all you saw was just this sea of media that were trying desperately, either you were trying to get Cam or you were trying to get Shedeur, but those two groups just kind of blended together, and it was just a mass of humanity around those two guys. What did you take away from the, first off, the feel when those two guys were on the podium, and then what they said?
yeah. And Jalen Milrow spoke at the same time as well, so they had plenty of
Absolutely.
star power in that session. What I took away from it was it was very similar to how it used to be. So Shedeur was on podium 8, Cam Ward was on podium 6. It used to be all the way at the other side, podium 1, and they would just rotate the premier players at that podium. So you just stand at podium 1, you get there early, you just stay out there, and you got the best of the best. Well, this time it was different. Definitely large presence, but it really was down to you had to pick. Now, for me, ESPN picked for me, which it's funny because, I've spoken so much about Shedeur. I would have thought that they would have put me at Shedeur's podium, but they put me at Cam Ward's, and it was still beneficial. And I really like the way Cam, he spoke about, just like he spoke with so much conviction and confidence. I had asked him, I said, tell me a couple plays or a particular game that gave you the true Cam Ward experience. And I love how he didn't point to a blowout. He pointed to the Cal game, where he had some turnovers, and he mentioned how they were able to come back and win. And if you go back and look at it, it was a 2-score deficit fourth quarter. I want the guy that's going to put us all on his back and say, hey, look, man, I don't care what the score is. We down by 2 scores. We're going to come back and win. And I guarantee you we're going to do that. And he did that against Virginia Tech, too. So it was just the swagger that he spoke with, the confidence. And you could tell that he's someone that, and I asked him about, leading 10 men, get in front of 10 men and tell them we're going to go over here and then following them. And he said that he has a variety of different leading styles. It's the work that he's put in and just the journey that he's had to go. That's what makes him feel confident that he can lead. Now, when I went back and watched Shedeur, what I really liked was how he was just himself. He had the hat on backwards. He didn't care about the quote unquote imaging and the stereotypical portrayal of a quarterback. And above all else, what I liked is how he said, if you're not trying to change your culture, don't pick me. He talked about how he could turn an organization around. He mentioned Jackson State, he mentioned Colorado, and he's like, I did it there, I did it here. Why? What makes you think I can't do it? At the next level. And I think he's right. So it was the confidence that these guys spoke with that really stood out to me.
What I liked about both of those guys, and I mean, we strategically, like, you knew you were going to be over at Cam Ward, so I made it a point to be at Shedeur. And I was there. I know that Emery bounced. I think he kind of tried to bop from both of them. He was a little in the middle. Um, But what struck me is that both guys were completely and totally confident that they were the top pick without being disrespectful or
Yeah.
dismissive to the other quarterbacks that were in the draft. At one point, I think Shedeur said, "Hey, this isn't to take anything away from anyone else. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in this draft, and I think that they can all be successful. But like history's just doomed to repeat itself again when it comes to what I'm able to do in a program. And I think the accountability piece you talked about it with Cam Ward talking about the Cal game and him not having his best game
Right.
to start with and having to rally. Shedeur also mentioned about this new thing that they're doing to try to credit some and discredit other, which is holding on to the ball.
Mm.
I know Cam talked about it as well.
He opened
Holding
up a
on
little
to the
bit.
ball, and they're calling it hero ball now, right? But we see and he didn't mention it, but I thought it was interesting because he said, "Yeah, I know that I've gotta be better about taking the things that I see early and getting into a rhythm, getting started early. I can't just be holding the ball trying to take the big shot over the top every time." Um, I think that's great self-awareness because if you followed Colorado, you've heard Coach Prime tell him, "Hey, just get the ball out your hand." You've heard his
Mm-hmm.
quarterback coach when he's talking and they're talking, going over previous games. Yeah, you could have gotten the ball out your hands, quicker and avoided some of these things. But I think it's interesting from both of those guys that when they're holding the ball, because Cam said, "Yeah, of course I'm going to hold the ball more if I have good protection up top, so that I can have an opportunity to, let my guys work, down the field." I think it's interesting that with these two guys, that's looked at as a negative. Whereas with guys in the NFL like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, um, Joe Burrow, you see them applauded for being able to hold the ball longer, to allow their wide receivers to work, and then maybe to even take a shot at the end to deliver the pass. It's a plus for them, but it seemed as if a lot of people wanted to use it as a negative for Shedeur and Cam. A little bit less of Cam, but definitely more towards Shedeur.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just with Shedeur, I always laugh because it's like all of these years, the black quarterbacks come out and you say, "Hey, you got to win from the pocket. The football, the quarterback position is played from the pocket." And you finally get a guy who is precisely that, and they say, "Hey, well, I need him to be more athletic." It just, come on, what do you want? And I think it just shows the hypocrisy that goes on when you're looking at the black quarterbacks. And I think you look at Cam also, he's a guy he could do both, right? So it's just funny to me how you have a guy who's a true dual threat, a guy who is an elite premier playmaker, and there's doubts. There's doubts. The Titans, the Browns, the Giants, like quarterback needy teams at the top of the draft. It's not just, "Hey, look, Caleb Williams is there, the Bears will take him." It's confusing to me. Cam Ward is there, you need a quarterback, take him. Shedeur Sanders is there, you need a quarterback, he fits your scheme perfectly, take him. And I don't understand what the hesitation or the question is.
That's another thing that was interesting. I heard some rumors. There was rumors going around in the stands. We were around a lot of reporters. There was rumors going around that Shedeur Sanders, um, when he was on the board, was terrible on the board. Like there was rumors that he was terrible on the board, and I remember exactly what this guy told me. It's a writer for another publication, one of the publications that are in the top three drafting, and he said that he heard when it was him drawing up and or going over schemes that he had been in, it was genius level. But whenever it was something that was brand new that was presented to him, he was terrible on the board.
Hmm.
And so as I'm listening to this, because you know how it is, it's misinformation time, right? Like it's lie through your teeth time in the
Yeah.
NFL. I'm listening to this and I'm going, okay, what's the easiest way to try to devalue a quarterback? Say he's dumb.
Intelligence. Yep.
Mess with the intelligence, right? So now all all of these people are trying to fall hook, line, and sinker for something that makes no sense just based off of how the young man moves. He's been in 6 different offenses in 4 years. What did you put on the board that he has never seen? Like, like what did you throw up there that he hasn't been exposed to? His offensive coordinator, his final season, maybe season and plus, is a former NFL head coach who's running an NFL system, NFL schemes, NFL terminology. His father says, hey, I'm more comfortable with NFL guys around. So every way that he's learning the position, he's playing the position, it's at an NFL level. What did you throw on the board? I've never played in the NFL. There is nothing you're going to throw on the board that I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm like, that's just not going to happen. Are you seeing that are you hearing more and more misinformation now that we are starting to get past the combine and we're into that dead period where, it's just going to be a lot of people talking about what they heard?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing that Shedeur is going to drop is interesting to me. And I mean, look, if he gets picked sixth, I think that's still a pretty good spot. So it's the season. You're going to have guys get devalued and things like that. The media, obviously, and just people in general, they love to hate Shador Sanders, and I think what you're seeing right now is the results from that, and it's unfortunate for him. But I'm just glad that he's in a place where he can say, forget all that, and just continue to do what it is that he does, and that's just play football and do it really well.
All right, so there, I want to get back to the discussions around trading up. What have you heard in regards to the New York teams, whether that's the Jets, the Giants, about possibly trading up or inquiring about trading up with the Titans for the number 1 pick?
Yeah, so the Jets have shown some interest. They're at 7. I'm not sure the level of interest or anything like that. I know from just when Mike Borgonzi spoke on Tuesday at the combine, he talked about teams reaching out, nothing serious, but just kind of the feelers. Now, while they're at the combine, you have the conversations going at St. Elmo's, Prime, and all the places, JW, High Velocity, et cetera, et cetera. Those are where deals tend to get made and really start to get some momentum. Now, if you think back, the trade, the Panthers trade with the Bears, if I'm not mistaken, was on March 10th. So that lets you know how early a deal could get done. Obviously, it was a different situation as far as how much the organization, the Panthers, they were in love with Bryce Young. Obviously, the Titans, they don't seem to be as in love with Cam Ward, and not sure if the Jets or Giants are, but those teams have reached out. Now, the Giants, from what I've heard, is they were all in on Matthew Stafford. Now, that one broke down, and they turned their attention to Aaron Rodgers, and it's kind of one of those things where it's Aaron Rodgers or moving up to 3, or excuse me, from 3 to 1, or possibly doing both. Now, if they do both, that'll be pretty interesting. I get why they would do it because Rodgers is going to have 2 years. Now, the whole thing is, can you get a guy number 1 overall and sit him for a year and a half, 2 years? That remains to be seen. So it's going to be interesting how they go about, the Giants said this, how they go about doing that. But there have been some other teams, that have reached out. There isn't a set number on it, but I do know that a lot of feeling out and gauging has happened already.
Wow, and so that would be interesting. You would, the Giants could possibly get Aaron Rodgers, and I've been on record as saying that I don't particularly like the move of getting Aaron Rodgers, but I will say, if I want to look at things from a positive perspective, they're not going to have to give up anything to get Aaron Rodgers if they get Aaron Rodgers, and that's,
Right.
to me, that's the more positive than with Matthew Stafford. But you think that or at least you've heard that there's a possibility that they could get Aaron Rodgers and still maneuver themselves to get up to number one to possibly take a Cam Ward to um, combine with Aaron Rodgers and have him kind of be an apprentice to Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years.
Yeah. There's a world where that could happen because you figure Aaron Rodgers is just going to take money. But I tell you something that's interesting when you pair those two. Cam Ward, he didn't say that he patterns his game after anybody in particular, but he definitely mentioned Aaron Rodgers as a guy that he really enjoys to watch, as well as Patrick Mahomes. So that would be pretty cool for Cam to get his welcome to the league, by way of Aaron Rodgers. And another thing to note, Aaron Rodgers, back when he was still with the Jets, he said that he'd be willing to mentor a young quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely said he would be willing to mentor. We didn't get to see it because it was an absolute dumpster fire in with the Jets last
Yeah,
year, really the last couple of years. Um, I think the interesting part is that if he is willing to mentor, it's not a bad comp for Cam Ward. Like it's not a bad a bad pairing to put together. My
right.
my biggest issue would be if you're going to go in to and grab an Aaron Rodgers, then aren't you trying to win? Like, aren't you trying to win right now? So why would you take Aaron Rodgers and then use a valuable pick like the third pick, or possibly even moving up and wasting more draft capital to get to the first pick, only to then sit all that capital on the bench while you have 2 years of Aaron Rodgers? It doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to make any sense as far as how you would utilize a guy in his final few years of the league who's probably trying to win and do something that's probably never been done before. So I don't get how that works, like how that makes you better in the short term. In the long term, I get it, right? Because you allow Cam Ward to be able to ease into the NFL, but in the short term, this is going to be looked at maybe not as bad as the Atlanta situation was looked at, but darn close.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely resembles it. That's for sure. So I, yeah, I can't tell you the explanation for why they're doing it, but that's just what I've heard that there's a possibility.
Yeah, so um as far as that goes, if you're sitting, if I'm putting the GM hat on you, Teron, um, what are you doing with that number one overall pick?
If I were the Titans,
Yeah.
I, I mean, I've been so back and forth between Cam Ward and Shedeur. I think it has to be one of the two because you need a quarterback, and I mean, you don't want to end up at number one again. While you're there, you might as well, if there's a quarterback qualified. I think Shedeur fits the scheme better. But I think if you go long term and upside and finding that guy that could be the one that's like, okay, we want because of him. I think Shador is more along the, you know, we'll win because of him, but it'll be, also more of a group effort. Like I just think that I think Cam is a bigger playmaker. I think the ceiling is higher for him. So I really want to say Shador because I think the fit, but I think when you look at going against, the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jackson, the Patrick Mahomes, and then if you beat those guys, you got to face this guy behind me, and Jalen Hurts. So it's like there's a lot, and I think that Cam is the better one. It's more of bringing a gun to a gunfight with Cam than it is Shador. And that's not to take anything away from Shador because I feel like he is a player that you could definitely win with. I just think you look at upside. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think what the Titans would do is draft Cam. I'm going to think with my heart, and I would say draft Shador because I just like the fit better.
Okay, so with that, let me put this scenario to you. Do you stay at one, and because if what we're hearing is true, and by the way, this is the part that I always just get frustrated by. if Shedeur Sanders is so bad, right? Why would the Giants have to move anywhere to get
Right,
him?
right.
So if you're the Titans, do you make a trade with the Giants from 1 to 3, knowing that Shedeur is like, if you're the GM, knowing that Shedeur is your guy because he fits the system better, very similar to Joe Burrow. The head coach has a connection to Joe Burrow. He'll know exactly how to use Shedeur Sanders. Do you trade with the Giants down to 3, take Sanders, pick up draft capital, or are you saying I'm going with the Cam Ward pick at 1 because I think that 5 years, 7 years from now, I've got one of the best playmakers at the position in the NFL.
And that's what's so beautiful about it all, because at the Shrine Week, when I talked to Brian Callahan, that's the exact scenario he set up, where he's like, okay, one has tremendous upside. The other, I think, is ready to play right now. He stylistically, seems to fit. Do you sacrifice now for the future, or vice versa? And I think that's the dilemma that they're enduring right now. So, I mean, look, you know, one of the other things Callahan said at the combine was about taking what a guy does and doing it well, right? And he said that's coaching, right? Finding a way to accentuate the qualities that your quarterback has. So a part of doing that would be switch things up a little bit to make Cam happy. You're not even happy, but productive. Showcase the ability. So I mean, there's so much back and forth that you have to consider. I'll be honest though, the one option that I wouldn't consider, and people would disagree, but I'm not taking Travis Hunter at number 1. Now, if you move back to 3, okay, maybe. Um, but I'm not taking him at number 1. I'm not doing it.
You think that is that taking him at number 1 would be a reach?
Yeah, because you could make a really strong case for top receiver. You really can. Although Matthew Golden he made a case for himself. Ted McMillan, he has his warts. Luther Burden, I mean, you put on the 2023 tape, we're not really having a discussion. He's the best guy. But I think when it comes to corner, so it depends on how you're drafting them, right? If you're drafting them to be a corner, typically, if you get a corner number 1 overall, like that dude is okay. You are choking Jamar Chase. You're stopping Justin Jefferson. AJ Brown doesn't stand a chance. Amon St. Brown in the slot is locked up. Like everybody is it's over for everybody. If you're taking a corner number 1. Do you look at Travis Hunter that way? I don't. You know, and then even Emery asked him about the return game. He's like, "Man, I already got 2 jobs." I just I'm not with picking him number 1 overall.
Okay, so when you look at the ceiling of a guy like Travis Hunter, you don't see a Sauce Gardner esque like ability at corner, because I feel like his measurables are very Sauce Gardner like, especially when he was coming out, and I
That
do think he has an innate instinct for getting his hands on the football that
the
most
ball skills are
cornerbacks are just
crazy.
not going to have.
Right. Yeah, the ball skills are crazy. I mean, most corners can't be drafted as a receiver. So yeah, he's definitely. I like the Sauce Gardner comparison. I do like that, because you are right. They do have a similar frame and skill set and everything. I can't do it at number 1. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. Not knowing that you got the quarterbacks and you got Abdul Carter available. I would rank all 3 of those guys before him.
Okay, and it makes sense. I can't even. I don't. Has there ever been a cornerback taken number 1 overall? So
I
like,
don't
would
think
it
so.
just be would it just be done for novelty, right? Like, just to say that it is, and if you're not going to use them, because I've heard people say, and this was interesting for the Giants, because there are people who think that the Giants should go with Travis Hunter if Travis Hunter falls to 3, and my thing is that I've heard people saying it's not that Travis Hunter can't play both sides of the football. It's it doesn't make any financial sense for Travis Hunter to play both sides of the football on his rookie contract because he's going to put all of that mileage on his body for the low, right? He's going to put all that mileage on his body for the low. It would make sense for him to lock in at one position, get to contract number 2, and then go, hey, listen, I'll be your number 1 corner, number 3 wide receiver, but you're going to have to pay me like both, right? As opposed to, hey, we just ran the brakes off you for 5 straight years. So yeah, I know you're only 26 in age, but you're really 32 in football years because we just played you on both sides of the ball. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen with him. I think he is the most intriguing prospect that I have seen in the draft, arguably forever, because I really and truly believe he could be a number 1 corner or a high end 2, low end 1 wide receiver. Just because I think the high end guys nowadays just have a little bit more bulk on them than he does, and unless he is able to do some body body transformations, I don't see him getting up to 195 anytime soon. That's just not. It doesn't seem like his frame is going to hold that because he's been in the weight room. All of those Colorado wide receivers look thicker than they looked in 2024 after that first season with Colorado. But he's never going to be a bigger, stronger version of that, in my opinion. So very intriguing and interesting that all 3 of those prospects seem to be in play in some way for either the Titans and or the Giants. TD, I don't want to hold you anymore. I know it's been a long day. It's been a long week. Have you kick your feet up and sit back. Tell everybody what you got going on. Tell them where they can follow you. All that stuff.
Yeah, well, Jeremy Fowler and I we're teaming on a project about the number 1 pick. That's actually what I'm about to sit down and finish up when we're done here. So that'll be out soon. You got the Talking with TD podcast. We're going to get ready to start that draft edition. We got a lot of guys lined up. So check that out. Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, all those spots where you get your fine listening materials. You can check me out on X at @TDavenport_NFL. Just Turron Davenport on IG, and man, we're in the mix.
Absolutely, it is that time of year. Are you planning on going to Green Bay for the
No,
draft?
no, I'll be at the facility. That's the best way for me to do it. You get your press conferences, you get your conversations. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and like, where are you going to stay in Green Bay anyway? Right? Like,
Yeah,
I'm still blowed that they're having this thing in Green Bay. It makes 0 sense to me.
might just stay in Milwaukee.
Absolutely. TD, I really appreciate it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Make sure you're going over to the New York Giants on SI. That's where you're going to find all of your updated New York Giants news and information. Check out everything that I'm doing over there. I've got a piece that's going to be dropping here the next day on the best prospects that fit the New York Giants needs coming out of the combine. You're going to want to check that out. Obviously, you want to be right here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing. We're getting those numbers up. We're trying to head towards 3,000. And make sure that you check out the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. You know what the deal is. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I've got a giant issue.